know you're out there. I can feel you now. I know that you're afraid. You're afraid of us. You're afraid of change. I don't know the future. I didn't come here to tell you how this is going to end. I came here to tell you how it's going to begin. I'm going to hang up this phone, and then I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see.
While coverage of the Islamic State's reign of terror in Iraq and Syria has quietly disappeared from the mainstream media, allegations and photos of the United States supporting and funding the group continue to come to the forefront. The latest battle is occurring over Deir ez-Zor, the largest city in eastern Syria, where both the US and Russia claim to be fighting against ISIS. However, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense, aerial images of ISIS positions included equipment from U.S. Army Special Forces. In a statement posted on its Facebook page, the Russian Defense Ministry claimed that U.S. Special Operations Forces units enable U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Forces units to smoothly advance through the ISIS formations, and because they are facing no resistance from ISIS militants, the Syrian Democratic Forces units are advancing along the left shore of the Euphrates toward Deir ez-Zor. Russia's MOD claimed the aerial photos were taken on September the 8th to the 12th over ISIS locations north of Deir ez-Zor. The equipment from American Special Operations Forces came in the form of a large number of American Hummer armored vehicles. The statement noted that even though the presence of the Special Operations Forces would indicate that they were aware of the terrorist group's presence in the area, its actions suggest that the U.S. troops feel safe in terrorist-controlled regions, because there were no calls for an organized screening patrol and there is no evidence of U.S.-led coalition airstrikes to drive out the militants. The shots clearly show the U.S. SOF units located at strongholds that had been equipped by the ISIS terrorists. Though there is no evidence of assault, struggle or any U.S.-led coalition airstrikes to drive out the militants. Despite that the U.S. strongholds being located in the ISIS areas, no screening patrol has been organized at them. This suggests that the U.S. troops feel safe in terrorist-controlled regions. Both the statement and the aerial images from Russia's Ministry of Defense serve as a reminder that the lines are often blurred when it comes to the difference between the Syrian Democratic Forces, which openly receive U.S. funding, and ISIS militants, which have mysteriously received help from the U.S. on a number of occasions. There have been accusations of the U.S. paying the salaries of the moderate rebels it was training in Syria, with one rebel commander reportedly saying in July that U.S. support had been waning for months, but the rebels had been given their salaries as normal last month. Russian President Putin alluded to the idea in 2014, when he called out the Obama administration for arming and training the Syrians that were fighting Assad, and then noted that both the moderate rebels and the ISIS militants are mercenaries, often fighting for the side that pays them the largest salary. Another threat that President Obama mentioned was ISIS. Putin said, "Well, who on earth armed them? Who armed the Syrians that were fighting with Assad? Who created the necessary political information and climate that facilitated this situation? Who pushed for the delivery of arms to the area? Do you really not understand who is fighting in Syria? They are mercenaries mostly. Do you understand they are paid money? Mercenaries fight for whichever side pays more." There are also a number of circumstances in which U.S. equipment and funding just happened to benefit the Islamic State. In October 2014, the Pentagon admitted that the U.S. airdropped weapons to ISIS, and blamed the wind for the fact that those weapons were not delivered to Kurdish fighters in Kobani. In October 2016, the Pentagon was caught paying a PR firm $540 million to create fake terrorist videos, much like the ones purported to show ISIS militants beheading innocent civilians. Then in a 2016 audit, the Department of Defense admitted that it could not account for $1 billion in weapons and equipment that was meant for forces in Syria, but likely ended up in the hands of ISIS. In 2017, allegations that U.S. Army Special Operations Forces units were found embedded with ISIS militants are no surprise, given the United States' history of being in the right place at the right time to protect the group from being defeated. As the reports become more and more obvious, it raises the question of whether the U.S. government will ever admit its true role in the conflict. We are anonymous. We are Legion. We are the revolution. Expect us.
Is the United States supporting Al-Qaeda in Syria? The answer is yes.
Fact number one. There is no question that Al-Qaeda fighters are part of the opposition forces attempting to overthrow Syria's government. Fact number two. The creation of Al-Qaeda wasn't Islamic fundamentalism. It was the CIA. The Mujahideen was created by the CIA to cause problems for the Soviets. And you might say that's crazy talk, right? Here's Secretary of State Hillary Clinton.
To be fair, we had helped to create the problem we're now fighting. How? Because when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, we had this brilliant idea that we were going to come to Pakistan and create a force of Mujahideen, equip them with Stinger missiles and everything else to go after the Soviets inside Afghanistan. And we were successful. The Soviets left Afghanistan, and then we said, great, goodbye, leaving these trained people who were fanatical in Afghanistan and Pakistan, leaving them well armed, creating a mess, frankly, that at the time we didn't really recognize. We were just so happy to see the Soviet Union fall, and we thought, okay, fine, we're okay now. Everything's going to be so much better. Now you look back, the people we're fighting today, we were supporting in the fight against the Soviets.
So it's not a conspiracy theory, it's history. And it's history that's being repeated in Libya and now in Syria. But there is a bigger problem here, one that every American should be questioning. We're fighting Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, but we're also bombing Al-Qaeda targets in Pakistan and in Yemen. And as we do that, something occurs known as collateral damage. Hundreds of civilians in Yemen have been killed in just the first half of 2012 by U.S. airstrikes aimed at Al-Qaeda fighters.
We also have a history of kind of moving in and out of Pakistan. I mean, let's remember here, the people we are fighting today, we funded 20 years ago. And we did it because we were locked in this struggle with the Soviet Union. They invaded Afghanistan, and we did not want to see them control Central Asia. And we went to work. And it was President Reagan in partnership with the Congress, led by Democrats, who said, you know what, sounds like a pretty good idea. Let's deal with the ISI and the Pakistani military, and let's go recruit these Mujahideen, and let's get some to come from Saudi Arabia and other places, importing their Wahhabi brand of Islam so that we can go beat the Soviet Union. And guess what? They retreated, they lost billions of dollars, and it led to the collapse of the Soviet Union. So there's a very strong argument, which is, it wasn't a bad investment to end the Soviet Union, but let's be careful what we sow because we will harvest. And we now are making up for a lot of lost time.
So what you need to know tonight is heavy. Our government is bombing sites around the world in an ongoing war with Al-Qaeda. In Iraq, where Al-Qaeda had no presence before the U.S. war, Al-Qaeda is now thriving. The same Al-Qaeda, yes, created by the U.S. government in order to harm the Soviets. And today, at least 13,000 civilians in Afghanistan are dead as a result of that war with Al-Qaeda. So with all respect to Ms. Fitzgerald from the Irish Times, this is not propaganda. Rather, it is the question that every American should be demanding answers on from Congress and from this president. Why are we giving Al-Qaeda fighters money and weapons to overthrow yet another government in the Middle East? Today, our government claims they're freeing the people of Syria. Tomorrow, if history tells us anything, we will be killing and wounding civilians in airstrikes and then referring to them as collateral damage in a war with an enemy who we brought to power.
Some of them They need more than one operation, more than one procedure.
Very hard. Is the rest of your children are okay?
جامعة السنة الثالثة.
The American people have felt directly the cost of our nation's interventionist wars, a cost borne by our nation's sons and daughters who've served, and by communities and people in every part of this country. We've spent trillions of dollars on regime change wars in the Middle East, while communities like mine in Hawaii face a severe lack of affordable housing, aging infrastructure, the need to invest in education, healthcare, and so much more. Our limited resources should go toward rebuilding our communities here at home, not fueling more counterproductive regime change wars abroad.
His life, savings, the story itself, and it's gone.
I've introduced the Stop Arming Terrorists Act, legislation that would stop our government from using taxpayer dollars to directly or indirectly support groups who are allied with and supporting terrorist groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda in their war to overthrow the Syrian government.
Teacher of math.
Wow.
And science.
Many people who came from all around the world, they asked me, how do you know that the gangs did this? And I said it very clearly. When you look to their weapons, you can know who exploded the church. And the Syrian army, legal army, never used such this. If you look at it, this is part of their weapon, and that this is not exploded. But don't be close to it, in order that you will not be in danger. All who are modern people who think in the terms of this age are targeted by them. They want this country to be bad. They want us not to be improved and developed as a community. And their plan is to have an Islamic state in this country. We will declare the greatness of you toward the humanity. Lord, we don't know what is the coming plans for our country and for our community, but we know that everything will be done for the good that you planned for us. Lord, lead us out of temptation.
The fact that our resources are being used to strengthen the very terrorist groups we should be focused on defeating should alarm every American. I urge my colleagues to support this bipartisan legislation and stop this madness. I yield back.
Time comes when silence is betrayal.
Dancing on the beat.
Some of us who have already begun to break the silence of the night have found that the calling to speak is often a vocation of agony. But we must speak.
Please, I'm asking, I need these questions answered. What happened to our species, huh? What happened to the peace we used to keep with each other? Now we all attached to the TV. Can't believe we believe these things. Cracks me up. That's why I'm standing on this stage and I'm masking up. Finally have the guts to do what this country asks of us. And we got the blood of Martin Luther King to back us up. The truth is here now. Why can't you face it? Why can't you engage it? Why can't you embrace it? Why must you hate it? Why can't you take it? Why try and escape it? Cause it's the fear in your own mind. You stare in the mirror and you're scared of your own eyes. Yeah, these are lies that you caught in. If you ain't figured it out yet and realize I'm talking to you, I try to show you truth and show you what's real, but you don't wanna face it. You don't wanna hear me. You don't wanna see it. You don't wanna know. Instead, you just rather look. I'm talking to you. I try to show you truth and show you what's real, but you on Facebook. No one's got their face in a book. Afraid to face the truth like blades, razors, and hooks. Don't be afraid, be brave, put out the flame with your foot. If everything that you've done has been created from love, then you've done everything that you were possibly capable of. It's amazing to hug a child who's never been hugged. Incredible to love someone who's never been loved. But we're shoved in these positions. We don't listen to our own intuitions. We get tricked by the system, then we sit kids in the backseat to the doctors, crying to the visit. Of course the child's naturally terrified of syringes, but still we give him to the physician. He's kicking and screaming, he flicks the tip of the needle and sticks the diseases. I'm looking to you, I try to show you truth and show you what's real, but you don't wanna face it, you don't wanna hear me, you don't wanna see it, you don't wanna know. Instead, you just rather look away. I'm looking to you, I try to show you truth and show you what's real, but you don't wanna face it, you don't wanna hear me, you don't wanna see it, you don't wanna know. Instead, you just rather look away. Intricate, they orchestrate like coordinated orchestras. They monitor and orbit us. I'm warning and informing ya. Pull your child's mouth away from these fluoridated formulas. The choice is yours, or the course is to the coroners. These poor beautiful little girls getting raped, and these departments are too scared to investigate. Yeah, they check the files, skip the names of the pedophiles. It comes up missing, and the cases are never found. It's ridiculous. It happens so consistent that it's sickening. It's getting to the point where we start doing more than just picketing. We see the finger, and it's our face they want to stick it in. That's why we will never forget, and there's no forgiving them. And while you, the silent ones, are just watching, we must speak and continue to keep marching. This is not something that we should just walk from. Hey, where you going? Come back here. Hey, yo, I'm talking to you. I try to show you truth and show you what's real, but you don't want to face it, you don't want to hear me, you don't want to see it, you don't want to know. Instead, you just rather look away. Talking to you, I try to show you truth and show you what's real, but you don't want to face it, you don't want to hear me, you don't want to see it, you don't want to know. Instead, you just rather look away.
Perhaps a new spirit is rising among us. If it is, let us trace its movements and pray that our own inner being may be sensitive to its guidance. For we are deeply in need of a new way beyond the darkness that seems so close around us.